I stood in the kitchen of my modest home, absent-mindedly stirring sugar into a steaming cup of coffee. The morning was peaceful, the sunlight softly filtering through the windows and the birds chirping outside my small backyard. There was something calming, almost therapeutic, about this simple morning ritual. Life had finally started to regain its balance after Sarah, my ex-wife, shattered it into pieces. She was a part of my past, carefully buried and left behind, or so I thought. That morning, as I took my first sip of coffee, my phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at it, expecting the usual work emails, maybe a notification about some bill or a message from a colleague. But instead, her name was staring back at me. Sarah. My chest tightened. I hadn't seen or heard from her in 5 years, not since the divorce. She was like a ghost from a life I no longer lived. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the screen. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind, but none of them made sense. What could she possibly want after all this time? Against my better judgment, I answered, "Hello." My voice came out steadier than I expected, but my heart was racing. There was a brief silence on the other end before I heard her voice. It was the same as I remembered, soft, calculated, with just a hint of sweetness that I knew better than to trust. "David," she said, her tone almost hesitant. "I know this is unexpected, but I need to talk to you. Please, it's important." I didn't know whether to laugh, hang up, or yell. 5 years of silence, and now she decides it's important? I swallowed my anger, keeping my voice calm. "What do you want, Sarah?" Her reply caught me off guard. "I'm not asking for anything, David. I need to tell you something. It's about us, about what really happened." I froze. What could she possibly mean? I thought I knew everything there was to know about her betrayal. There were no secrets left to uncover, or so I believed. "David, please," she pressed. "Can we meet? Just once. I promise it won't take long." I hesitated. Every instinct in me screamed to say no. I had spent years picking up the pieces of my life, painstakingly rebuilding my self-esteem, my trust, my stability. Sarah had no right to disrupt that. But curiosity is a powerful thing, and against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. We arranged to meet at a cafe in the city, a neutral place where I could leave the moment things got uncomfortable. The rest of the day dragged on, my mind racing with questions and worst-case scenarios. What could she possibly want to tell me? Was this some twisted game, or worse, a ploy to manipulate me back into her chaotic world? When the time came, I arrived early, securing a table by the window where I could see her approach. I told myself I was in control this time, that she couldn't hurt me anymore. But when Sarah walked in, I felt the familiar knot in my stomach. She looked different, older, but still carried that same air of entitlement, like the world revolved around her. She sat across from me, her hands clasped tightly together. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the weight of 5 years of silence hanging in the air. Then she said the words that sent a chill down my spine. "David, there's something I've been hiding from you. Something I've carried all these years, and it's about to change everything." I leaned back in my chair, my arms crossed tightly over my chest, trying to keep my composure. Sarah's words were like a grenade, her tone the pin she had just pulled. I should have known better than to meet her, but here I was, trapped in the vortex of her drama once again. "What do you mean, Sarah?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. "What could you possibly have to tell me after all this time?" She hesitated, biting her lip, a nervous habit I remembered all too well. "I don't even know where to start," she muttered, looking down at her hands. It's complicated." I clenched my jaw. "Then simplify it," I said sharply. "You drag me here, so whatever you have to say, just spit it out." She flinched, but I didn't care. For years, I had lived with the scars she left behind. If she wanted my attention now, she was going to earn it. Finally, she looked up, her eyes meeting mine. "David, you remember the day we signed the divorce papers?" "Hard to forget," I said bitterly. "It was the day you walked away without a second thought, Sarah." "So, yeah, I remember." Her gaze faltered, and she looked away. "There's something I didn't tell you. Something I've been hiding, and it's about why I left." I scoffed. "Why you left? Really? I thought we covered that when I found out you were sleeping with someone else." Her face reddened, but she didn't deny it. "It wasn't just that," she said quietly. "There's more to the story, David. A lot more." I stared at her, my patience wearing thin. "Sarah, I don't have time for your games. Just say what you came here to say." She took a deep breath, as if summoning every ounce of courage she had. And then she dropped the bombshell. David, she said slowly, I was pregnant when I left. The words hung in the air, a deafening silence following them. I blinked, sure I had misheard her. What? I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. I was pregnant, she repeated, her voice trembling. And the baby, it wasn't yours. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My mind raced, trying to process what she had just said. Pregnant. Not mine. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, all the air sucked out of the room. You were pregnant? I stammered, struggling to keep my voice steady. And you didn't tell me? She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't know how to tell you, David. I didn't want to hurt you more than I already had. I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and hollow. Hurt me, Sarah? You destroyed me. You cheated, you lied, and then you just left. And now you're telling me you were carrying another man's child the whole time? She looked down, her tears now streaming down her face. I know I was wrong, she whispered. But I thought I was doing the right thing by walking away. I didn't think you'd want to know. I shook my head, my hands trembling with anger and disbelief. And what about now, Sarah? Why tell me this now, 5 years later? What's the point? Her silence was deafening. She looked like she was about to speak, but the words wouldn't come. I leaned forward, my voice rising. Answer me, Sarah? Why now? She finally met my gaze, and the look in her eyes sent a chill down my spine. Because, she said, her voice barely audible, my son, your son's half-brother, wants to meet you. The air left my lungs. I felt like I was drowning, the weight of her words pulling me under. Half-brother. Son. None of it made sense, and yet here it was, staring me in the face. Sarah, I said slowly, my voice shaking. Are you telling me you've been raising this child all this time, and now, suddenly, you want me to be a part of his life? Is that it? She nodded, wiping her tears. He knows about you, David. He's old enough to understand now, and he's been asking questions. I thought you deserved to know, and he deserves to know you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything she had done, after the pain she had caused, she thought she could just waltz back into my life and drop this on me? My head was spinning, my heart pounding in my chest. Why should I care? I said harshly. You made your choices, Sarah. You made it clear that I didn't matter to you. So why does any of this matter now? Her lip quivered, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that looked like genuine regret. Because, she said softly, he's sick, David. And he needs your help. The room felt like it was spinning. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles white, as Sarah's words echoed in my head. He's sick, David, and he needs your help. I leaned back, trying to steady my breathing. What do you mean he's sick? And what does that have to do with me? My voice was cold, but inside, I was a storm of emotions. Anger, confusion, and a tiny flicker of something I didn't want to acknowledge. Concern. Sarah took a shaky breath. He was diagnosed a few months ago. It's leukemia, David. The doctors say he needs a bone marrow transplant, and I thought maybe you could get tested. There's a chance you might be a match. I stared at her, my mind racing. This couldn't be happening. After everything she put me through, she was asking me to save the life of a child that wasn't even mine, a child that existed because she betrayed me. Are you kidding me? I said, my voice rising. You have the audacity to come here after 5 years of silence and ask me for this? Do you have any idea what you're asking, Sarah? Her eyes filled with tears again, but I wasn't moved. Not this time. David, I know I don't deserve your help, she said, her voice trembling. But he's just a child. He didn't ask for any of this. And he's your son's half-brother. Please, David, just think about it. I shook my head, my anger boiling over. Think about it, Sarah. I've done nothing but think about what you did to me for the past 5 years. You ripped my life apart, and now you want me to just forget all that and save the child you had with someone else? How do you even justify asking me for this? She flinched at my words, but she didn't back down. Because I'm desperate, David, she said quietly. Because I'll do whatever it takes to save him, even if it means swallowing my pride and begging you. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. As much as I hated her, as much as I wanted to tell her to leave and never come back, I couldn't ignore the pain in her voice. I looked away, staring out the window as I tried to collect my thoughts. Finally, I spoke. What about his father? I asked, my voice icy. Shouldn't he be the one stepping up to help? Or is he as much of a coward as you are? Sarah's face paled, and she looked down at her hands. He's not in the picture, she admitted. He left when I told him I was pregnant. I've been raising our son on my own. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Of course he did. Typical. And yet, somehow, I'm the one you've decided to burden with this? Unbelievable. David, please, she said, her voice breaking. I know you have every right to hate me, but this isn't about me. It's about a little boy who doesn't have much time. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for his life. Her words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to say no, to walk away and leave her to deal with the mess she'd made. But the thought of a child, innocent and undeserving of the chaos his mother had caused, made it impossible to ignore her plea entirely. I need time to think, I said finally, my voice cold but firm. I'm not making any promises, Sarah. Don't expect me to. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for even considering it. Without another word, I stood and walked out of the cafe. The crisp air hit me like a slap to the face, but it did little to clear the storm in my head. I felt like I was being dragged back into a nightmare I'd fought so hard to escape. As I drove home, my mind was a mess of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to slam the door shut on Sarah and everything she represented. But another part of me, one I wasn't proud of, was haunted by the image of a sick little boy who might not live to see another year. When I got home, I poured myself a drink and sank into the couch, staring blankly at the wall. My thoughts were interrupted by a memory I hadn't allowed myself to revisit in years, the day Sarah and I had picked out baby names. It was before everything fell apart, back when I still believed we had a future together. We laughed and argued over names, imagining a life that never came to be. Now, I couldn't shake the question that lingered in the back of my mind. If I didn't help, could I live with myself? But if I did, what would it cost me? As the night dragged on, I realized I was standing at a crossroads, one that could change my life forever. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache, my thoughts still tangled in the mess Sarah had dropped on me. The coffee I brewed tasted bitter, but it wasn't the beans. It was the weight of the decision hanging over me. I hadn't slept much, replaying every word she said and every memory of our failed marriage. I kept asking myself the same question. Why me? Sarah had plenty of options, family, friends, and even complete strangers. Yet she came to me, the person she betrayed and abandoned, to save her child. It didn't feel fair, and I couldn't shake the bitterness. But deep down, I knew why she came to me. Because she trusted me to do the right thing, because no matter how much I hated her, she knew I wasn't the kind of man to let a child suffer if I could help. That thought made me angrier than anything else. I couldn't focus at work that day. My colleagues noticed I was distracted, but I shrugged off their questions. I didn't want to explain why my ex-wife had come crawling back into my life, dragging her secrets with her. I spent my lunch break alone in my car, staring at my phone. Sarah had texted me the night before, thanking me again for considering her request. I didn't respond. I couldn't. When I got home that evening, I found myself staring at a photo album I hadn't touched in years. It was tucked away in the back of a closet, a relic of a life I tried to forget. Flipping through it, I saw the smiles, the vacations, the moments when I believed Sarah and I had something real. But it all felt like a lie now, tainted by her betrayal. One photo stopped me cold. It was of us holding hands at a family picnic, surrounded by kids, my nieces and nephews. I remembered how happy I'd been, how much I wanted children of my own. That dream had died the day I found out Sarah was unfaithful. But the desire for family had never really left me. Suddenly, the idea of her child, her son, hit me differently. He wasn't to blame for any of this. He didn't ask to be born into the chaos Sarah created. And if he was sick, if he truly needed me, was it fair to let my anger toward his mother dictate his fate? I poured myself another drink, hoping it would drown out the turmoil in my head. But it didn't work. Sarah's words kept echoing. He's just a child. He didn't ask for this. I hated her for putting me in this position, but I hated myself more for considering her request. It wasn't just about the boy. It was about what helping him would mean. It would mean opening the door to Sarah again, letting her and her lies back into my life. Could I really handle that? The next day, I made up my mind. I called Sarah, my voice cold and distant. I'll get tested, I said. But this doesn't change anything between us. Don't expect forgiveness or anything more than this. Her voice cracked with relief. Thank you, David. You don't know what this means to me, to him. I didn't respond. I just hung up, feeling a strange mix of anger and guilt. The decision was made, but I knew it was only the beginning. Helping her son might save his life, but it could also drag me back into a world I'd fought so hard to escape. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. A week later, I found myself sitting in a sterile clinic, filling out paperwork and trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. The nurse smiled politely as she handed me the forms, but her cheery demeanor only made me feel worse. This wasn't where I wanted to be. Every part of me wanted to turn around and walk out the door, but I couldn't shake the thought of a sick child waiting for a chance at life. Sarah had sent me the details of the procedure in a carefully worded email. She didn't call or text after my curt reply, which I appreciated. Still, just seeing her name in my inbox made my blood boil. She was keeping her distance for now, but I knew she was waiting, hoping this would go the way she wanted. After the nurse drew my blood, I sat in the waiting room, staring at the floor. My mind drifted to questions I hadn't let myself ask before. What was the boy like? Did he look like her, or the man she betrayed me with? Did he even know about me? I felt sick just thinking about it. The nurse finally called my name, handing me a small card with follow-up instructions. "We'll call you with the results in a few days," she said with a kind smile. I nodded, barely acknowledging her. I just wanted to get out of there. Driving home, I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me. Part of me hoped I wouldn't be a match, that I could close this chapter and never think about Sarah or her son again. But another part of me, the part one hated to admit existed, wanted to help. Not for Sarah, but for the boy. He was innocent in all of this, and he didn't deserve to suffer because of his mother's mistakes. The days that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work, trying to keep my mind off the test results. But every time my phone buzzed, my stomach tightened. When the call finally came, I almost didn't answer. "Mr. Carter," a calm, professional voice said on the other end of the line. "This is the clinic. We've got your test results." My heart raced as I gripped the phone tighter. "And?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You're a match." The words hit me like a freight train. I sat down heavily on the couch, my free hand running through my hair. "What does that mean?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. The voice on the other end explained the next steps, the procedures, the risks. I nodded along, barely processing what they were saying. All I could think about was the weight of what I just agreed to. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. The reality of the situation was sinking in. I had a choice to make, one that would define who I was. I could walk away, let Sarah deal with the mess she created, or I could step up, despite everything, and try to save a life. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "Did you hear back yet?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Finally, I replied, "I'm a match." Her response came almost immediately. "Thank you, David. You have no idea how much this means to us." I didn't reply. I couldn't. The emotions were too raw, too complicated. I had agreed to help, but I still didn't know if I was doing the right thing. Was this an act of kindness, or was I letting myself get pulled back into her web? As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized this wasn't just about a child's life. It was about facing the past I thought I'd left behind, and I had no idea if I was ready for what was coming next. The next few days felt like I was walking through quicksand. Every moment dragged, and every thought weighed heavy. Knowing I was a match, there was no turning back. I was now tied to Sarah and her son in a way I couldn't ignore. But I wasn't ready to confront what that truly meant. Sarah called me the day after the clinic confirmed the match. Her voice was softer, almost hesitant. "David, I just wanted to say thank you. I know this isn't easy for you, and I don't take it for granted." I kept my response brief. "It's not about you, Sarah. It's about the boy." She paused, as if choosing her next words carefully. "His name is Noah," she said finally. "He knows about you, David. He's been asking questions since I told him someone might help. I haven't told him everything, though. I didn't want to overwhelm him." Noah. The name hit me harder than I expected. Suddenly, the boy wasn't just an abstract concept anymore. He was real, and for the first time, I found myself wondering what he looked like. Did he have Sarah's piercing green eyes, or the cowardly smirk of the man she cheated on me with? The thought twisted my stomach. "Look, Sarah," I said, cutting her off before she could go any deeper. "I'll do what I agreed to do, but I don't want this to be more than it has to be. I'll help Noah, but I'm not looking for a reunion tour." She was quiet for a moment before replying. I understand, she said, though her voice carried a hint of sadness. But can I ask for one more thing? I groaned internally. What now, Sarah? He wants to meet you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Just once, before everything happens. I think it would mean a lot to him. The request caught me off guard. Meet him? That was crossing a line I wasn't sure I was ready to cross. But her words lingered in my mind long after I hung up the phone. Was I ready to face the boy who was now inexplicably part of my life? A few days later, I found myself sitting in a park, waiting. It was a quiet spot, with benches under tall oak trees and a playground nearby. Sarah had suggested it, saying Noah loved it there. I didn't know what to expect, but I told myself I'd keep it brief. A handshake, a quick conversation, and then I'd be on my way. When Sarah arrived, she was holding the hand of a small boy. Noah. My breath caught in my throat as I saw him for the first time. He was smaller than I'd imagined, with thin arms and pale skin that hinted at the toll his illness had taken. But his eyes, bright green and full of life, stared at me with curiosity and something that looked like hope. Sarah gave me a tentative smile as they approached. Noah, this is David, she said softly. The man I told you about. He looked up at me, his small face lighting up in a way that made my heart ache. Hi, he said shyly, his voice barely audible. Hey, Noah, I said, forcing a smile. It's nice to meet you. We sat on a nearby bench, the three of us. At first, the conversation was awkward, filled with Sarah prompting Noah to ask questions and me giving short, careful answers. But as the minutes passed, something shifted. Noah started to open up, talking about his favorite books, his dream of becoming an astronaut, and how he loved playing with his dog, Max. I listened, nodding and asking questions when I could. It felt strange, sitting there with this boy who was both a stranger and somehow tied to me. I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. None of this was his fault. He didn't choose his circumstances, yet here he was, caught in the middle of a mess he didn't create. When it was time to leave, Noah looked up at me with those bright green eyes. Are you going to help me? He asked, his voice filled with innocence and hope. The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I looked at him, at the way he held my gaze with complete trust, and I knew there was only one answer I could give. Yeah, buddy, I said, my voice cracking. I'm going to help you. Noah smiled, a genuine, heartwarming smile that made all my doubts and anger fade for just a moment. Sarah didn't say much as we parted ways, but I saw the gratitude in her eyes. Still, I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing it for Noah. As I drove home that evening, I couldn't stop thinking about the boy. For the first time in years, my hatred for Sarah felt less important. There was something bigger at stake now, and whether I liked it or not, I was part of it. The days following my meeting with Noah were a blur. His small voice, his bright eyes, and that innocent question, "Are you going to help me?" played on a loop in my mind. I couldn't shake the image of him, so frail yet so full of life. It felt unfair, cruel even, that a boy like him was burdened with something so heavy. Sarah texted me the next day, thanking me for meeting him. I didn't reply. Instead, I threw myself into work, into anything that could distract me from the decision looming over me. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the reality. I had agreed to help, and now the next steps were staring me in the face. The clinic called to schedule the procedure, and I reluctantly confirmed the date. It was set for the following week, a day that now felt like a deadline, both for Noah and for my own emotional walls. I didn't know how I'd get through it, but I knew I couldn't back out. Not now. On the day of the procedure, I arrived at the hospital early, the sterile smell of the place immediately putting me on edge. A nurse greeted me, her smile professional but kind. "You're doing something really wonderful," she said as she led me to a prep room. I nodded, not trusting myself to respond. I didn't feel wonderful. I felt trapped, like I was being pulled into something far bigger than myself. As I sat on the hospital bed, waiting for the anesthesiologist, my mind wandered to Noah. Would this work? Would he have a chance to grow up, to chase those dreams of becoming an astronaut? Or would all of this be for nothing? The uncertainty gnawed at me, but I forced myself to focus. I was here to give him a chance, no matter the outcome. The procedure itself was a blur. One moment I was lying on the bed, the next I was waking up, groggy and sore. A nurse was by my side, checking my vitals. "Everything went well," she said, her voice soothing. "You're going to feel some discomfort for a few days, but you did great." I nodded weakly, relief and exhaustion washing over me. It was done. Now all I could do was wait. Sarah texted me that evening. Noah is doing well. They started the transplant. Thank you, David. You've given him a chance. For the first time, I replied, let's hope it works. I didn't want to admit it, but part of me felt lighter, knowing I had done something good, something selfless. But that feeling didn't last long. A few days later, Sarah called me again, her voice trembling with a mix of gratitude and something else I couldn't place. David, I need to talk to you, she said. There's something I've been meaning to tell you. My stomach dropped. I thought I was done with her secrets, but it seemed Sarah still had more to unravel. Sarah's words lingered in my ear long after the call ended. There's something I've been meaning to tell you. That one sentence was enough to send my mind spiraling. What could she possibly reveal now? Hadn't she already dropped enough bombs on me? I reluctantly agreed to meet her the following evening. We chose a quiet diner on the edge of town, far from the prying eyes of anyone who might know us. As I walked in, I spotted her sitting in a corner booth, nervously stirring a cup of tea. She looked up as I approached, her expression a mix of apprehension and something I couldn't quite place. Guilt, maybe. I sat down without a word, crossing my arms as I leaned back in the booth. All right, Sarah, I said, keeping my tone as neutral as I could. What's this all about? She hesitated, biting her lip, like she always did when she was nervous. David, first, I just want to say thank you for everything. What you did for Noah, it means the world to me. I nodded, impatient. We've been over this. Just get to the point. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she clasped them together. There's something I didn't tell you about Noah, about his father. I tensed, my jaw tightening. I thought we already covered this. The guy left when you told him you were pregnant. End of story. She shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. It's not that simple, David. I lied to you back then. And now, my heart sank. What are you talking about, Sarah? She looked down at her hands, unable to meet my gaze. Noah's father, he wasn't some random guy. He was someone you knew. The words hit me like a freight train. What? I said, my voice low and sharp. Who? She hesitated, the silence stretching unbearably before she finally spoke. It was Kevin. Time seemed to stop. Kevin, my best friend, the man who had stood by me through thick and thin, who had been like a brother to me. The betrayal hit me harder than anything Sarah had ever done. My stomach churned, and my fists clenched involuntarily. You're telling me, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady, that you had an affair with Kevin, and he's Noah's father? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, David. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared, and then when everything fell apart, I thought it was better if you didn't know. Better? I spat, my voice rising despite myself. Better for who, Sarah? For you? For Kevin? Certainly not for me. She flinched, but didn't argue. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, she said quietly. But I thought you should know the truth, especially now. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. My chest felt tight, my head spinning with rage and betrayal. I can't do this, I said, shaking my head. You've lied to me at every turn, Sarah. Even now, after everything, you're still ripping my life apart. David, wait, she pleaded, standing as well. Please, don't walk away. Noah needs you. You're the only one who's been there for him. I looked at her, my anger simmering just beneath the surface. He's not my responsibility, Sarah. He never was. But I helped him because he's an innocent kid who didn't deserve any of this. Don't mistake that for me forgiving you. Her face crumpled, but I didn't wait to see her reaction. I walked out of the diner, the cool night air hitting me like a slap to the face. My mind was a storm of emotions. Anger, betrayal, confusion, but one thought stood out above the rest. What now? I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours, the streets blurring into one another as my thoughts spiraled. Sarah's revelation about Kevin felt like the final nail in the coffin of a past I had worked so hard to bury. My best friend. My wife. Noah. It was too much to process. Eventually, I pulled into an empty parking lot and sat there in the silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind raced with memories of Kevin, our late-night talks, the times he'd stood by me during tough moments, the way I trusted him with everything. And all the while, he was betraying me in the worst way possible. I punched the steering wheel, the sharp pain in my knuckles grounding me for a moment. What was the point of all of this? Why had Sarah dragged me back into this mess after all these years? Did she think telling me the truth now would somehow absolve her of what she had done? Or was this her way of passing the weight of her guilt onto me? I didn't know, and honestly, I wasn't sure I cared. The next morning, I woke up on my couch, still in yesterday's clothes. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, and I stared at it, dreading who might be on the other end. Sure enough, it was Sarah. I ignored it. A minute later, it buzzed again. This time it was a text. David, I know you're angry. I don't blame you. But please, Noah wants to see you. He keeps asking if you're okay. He doesn't understand what's happening, and I don't know how to explain it to him. I threw the phone across the couch in frustration. Of course, Noah was caught in the middle of this. He was the only innocent person in this entire mess, and yet he was the one suffering the most. I spent the day pacing the house, unable to shake the thought of Noah. I could still see his wide eyes, the hope in his voice when he asked if I'd help him. That alone was enough to make my anger feel hollow. No matter how much I hated Sarah or Kevin, none of this was Noah's fault. He was just a kid who deserved a chance at life. By evening, I made up my mind. I called Sarah, my voice curt. I'll come see him, but this doesn't mean I forgive you. I'm doing this for Noah, not for you. Her relief was palpable. Thank you, David. That's all I'm asking. The following afternoon, I arrived at Sarah's house. It felt strange being back, stepping into a space that used to be mine, but now felt completely foreign. The walls were painted a different color, the furniture rearranged. It was like walking into a ghost of my past, but one I no longer recognized. Noah was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. When he saw me, his face lit up. David, he exclaimed, his voice still a little weak, but full of excitement. Hey, buddy, I said, forcing a smile. How are you feeling? He shrugged. Okay, I guess. Mom says the doctors are happy with how things are going. That's good to hear, I said, sitting down across from him. You're a tough kid, you know that? He grinned, and for a moment, the weight of everything felt a little lighter. We talked for a while, about his favorite movies, his dog Max, and his dream of visiting NASA someday. He didn't ask about the tension between Sarah and me, and for that, I was grateful. But as I left the house that evening, Sarah stopped me at the door. David, she said softly, thank you for coming. It means a lot to him. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As I walked to my car, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, and something else I couldn't quite name. Closure, maybe? Or was it the beginning of something I wasn't ready to face? The days following my visit to Sarah's house felt like a strange limbo. I had done what I could for Noah, and for a brief moment, I thought I might finally find peace. But the weight of Sarah's betrayal and the new revelation about Kevin still hung over me, unresolved and suffocating. I couldn't let it fester any longer. I decided to confront Kevin. He was easy to find. A quick search online told me he was still living in the same city, running the same small business we used to joke about back when we were friends. As I stood outside his office, my fists clenched and heart racing, I wondered if this was even worth it. But the anger and the need for closure pushed me forward. When I walked in, he froze, his face drained of color, and his smile, the one I used to trust, faded into a look of guilt. David, he said, his voice uneasy. It's been a long time. Not long enough, I said coldly. We need to talk. He motioned to a small office in the back. Once inside, I shut the door, leaning against it to keep my composure. You know why I'm here, I said. Don't bother lying. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Sarah told you? She told me everything. I spat. You? Her? Noah. How you betrayed me while pretending to be my friend. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said weakly. It was a mistake. A mistake. I laughed bitterly. A mistake doesn't last months, Kevin. A mistake doesn't result in a child. He hung his head, unable to meet my gaze. You're right, he said quietly. I messed up. I was selfish, and I hurt you. I'll regret it for the rest of my life. His words rang hollow, but I didn't come for apologies. I came to close the door on this chapter of my life. I don't care about your regrets, I said. I'm here to tell you that you're nothing to me anymore. You were my best friend, and you threw it away. Don't expect forgiveness, and don't expect me to forget. Stay out of my life. He nodded, his face pale. I understand. Without another word, I walked out, slamming the door behind me. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of relief. The confrontation hadn't fixed anything, but it had given me the closure I needed. A new beginning. Over the next few weeks, I focused on moving forward. I didn't block Sarah's number, but I kept my distance. I continued to check on Noah through brief texts and updates, but made it clear to Sarah that our relationship was strictly about him. She respected my boundaries, something I never thought I'd see from her. As for Noah, his recovery was slow but steady. Every time I heard about his progress, I felt a small spark of pride. I hadn't been his father, but I had given him a chance at life. That was enough for me. One day, months later, Sarah called. Her voice was calm, almost grateful. "David, I just wanted to say thank you for everything. Noah's doing better, and it's because of you." I didn't know what to say. After a moment, I simply replied, "Take care of him, Sarah." And with that, I hung up, feeling like I had finally let go of the weight I'd carried for so long. The past was behind me, and for the first time, I felt ready to face the future on my own terms.